Yeah, this
See, we
meeting.
always get this. Whenever we start, we get this little thing. This meeting is now being live streamed. And you say, got
All
it,
right,
and we're
and
good.
yes, and this meeting is being live streamed, so I'm sorry for the delay, but it's not the first time we've been late. This is Gabe Vignetti, and I have Tim Larson with me. Carl couldn't make it today, and what we're talking about today, and I don't know if we're going to be on long today, is the Wade-Allison Redux, which is, we're going to talk a little bit about the Wade-Allison conversation that we had last week. By the way, there was 2 streams. It was public and I held it in public too long. And then I unlisted it, but I had an edited version, which is 50 minutes, is fascinating. I think the most interesting thing that I heard Dr. Allison say was that nuclear power plants only need iron, cement, I think he said cadmium and water, basically. And of course, uranium, which is none of that's a problem, which would, in the case of renewables, it would be a problem. But what did you think of our little get together, Tim?
I thought that was a great meeting. I have lots of interesting stuff that I got out of it. I was glad that he didn't really talk about nuclear in particular. I think what he started out with, if I remember correctly, was how people moved from various forms of fuel and throughout history, from fires to coal, and then to oil and fuel, like gasoline and diesel.
Yeah.
And then, how we should move on to uranium. And I think that part of that was, he said that renewables is sort of going in the wrong direction because we're using so many of those rare earths. Relying on more resources instead of less getting more out of less resources. And it sounded like renewables were moving towards, more and more resources and getting less and less out of them.
Yeah, I know. And there was something that I should have asked Dr. Allison. I realized in retrospect, it was about Fukushima. And could that dog be, could you close your door or something? Is that possible for that dog? All right. We're going to get back to that, but it was about Fukushima, and it was fascinating. Yeah, there we go. So what I was going to ask him was about, we talked a little bit about it. We touched on it. The cesium-137 and the iodine. And the question that I should have asked, and someone brought this up to me. They were bugging me about this on our Twitter page. And they were saying, hey, I'm all for building more nuclear, but let's be honest about it. It's dangerous as hell because Fukushima had an exclusion zone, right? And, I pointed out to him about the radiation difference being very drastic, but there's a difference between cesium and strontium-90, which enter the body and stay in the body, and external radiation. And I should have asked him about that, because that is a good question. I mean, how much? I mean, people were hit with cesium, and I think cesium is what goes into the thyroid. Am I right about that, Tim?
No, it was the iodine that's thyroid. There's a problem in thyroid, but see, most modern humans get enough iodine in their diet that the thyroid is fully saturated and you're not going to pick up any excess iodine that's radioactive. And I don't remember what the half-life of iodine is. I
Are
think
you
it's
sure that wasn't
28 years.
cesium though? Are you sure that wasn't cesium that goes into the thyroid?
Yeah, I'm positive about that.
It wasn't the iodine itself, I don't think, was it? I never heard of
Well,
it. Anything that's iodine that's radioactive.
well, yeah, oh yes, that's the main deal with giving out iodine tablets to people surrounding around nuclear power plants, and it's just a kind of a PR gimmick.
Really?
Because, well, yeah, like I said, most modern humans get enough iodine in their diet that the thyroid is saturated with iodine. And if there's some sort of radioactive disaster, they're not going to pick up any excess iodine because they're just already saturated with non-radioactive iodine, I guess it is.
Well,
I think that was one of the main problems at Chernobyl, is that there were young people drinking milk from cows who were eating contaminated pasture, and that they had low iodine levels to begin with. So any iodine that they picked up was more likely to be radioactive. I can, if I was better at this Zoom stuff, I could look up the half-life of iodine. I think it's not very long. And then the half-life of, and it decays to cesium, if I'm not, if I correct.
30 years.
Correct.
I looked that up. It's 30 years. I could have sworn it was cesium.
Well, iodine has a shorter half-life. The cesium is bone related. So I think strontium, cesium are very close to calcium on the periodic table, and that they act very similarly chemically. But the thing with strontium, it only happens, I believe, in high energy radioactive and high energy reactions. So I'm not sure that strontium was a problem with nuclear reactor disasters so much as above ground nuclear testing of weapons. I could be wrong about this. We should just
I'm looking it up as we speak.
Look, what I took away from Wade Allison's conversation the most is how that all of this radio isotopic fear is completely exaggerated. And just yesterday, I got a question from a real hardcore anti-nuclear guy who makes documentary movies with hardcore anti-nuclear bullshit, asking me about dirty bombs and such. And, you know, it's just, we've never had a dirty bomb, and the likelihood of somebody actually using one is pretty low. I mean, who's going to make one? And you know, and the takeaway with dirty bombs is they're really not any more dangerous than the conventional weapons that they're deployed with. And that for nuclear weapons, they're just bigger, more effective bombs. The radiological part is really exaggerated.
Very much so, but I got to wonder if it's not completely exaggerated, because people do get sick from radiation, you know, if there's excessive amounts.
There's very, very little, that just doesn't happen that often. And like Dr. Wade said, Dr. Allison said, you know, very, very few people died from cancer at Hiroshima and Nagasaki.
Yeah.
If in the very, very, very unlikely chances that you encounter radiation, it's either going to kill you, acute radiation sickness, where you get sick and die within weeks, days, months, whatever, or, you know, there's some sort of chronic exposure and you're just unlikely to get ill from it. Cancer is an radiation is an unlikely source of cancer.
Actually, it cures cancer.
Pardon?
Actually, it cures
yes,
cancer.
it's much more likely to nowadays to cure your cancer. I believe 40 million doses of nuclear radiation medicine are made per year. It's unfortunate that those people are usually pretty sick by the time they get any sort of radiation treatment. But there's all sorts of other.
That's a very radical treatment.
And it's a radical treatment, exactly. You know, most nuclear medicine is MRIs and PET and X-ray and stuff like that. I mean, X-rays alone have saved millions and millions of lives and hundreds, probably billions and billions of dollars in, you know, ongoing medical care.
Let me tell you a story, Tim. Let me stop you there. My brother-in-law came from Italy to visit us, right? And while he was here, he accidentally broke 2 ribs, right? And, you know, he was complaining about his ribs and he says, really hurts bad. Take me to the emergency room. Took him to the emergency room. They x-rayed him. Says, you don't got no problem. Just, you know, it'll go away. So he goes back to Italy and it's still bothering him and it won't go away. So he goes to the hospital emergency room in Italy, and they do a nuclear test on him using radiation, and they found out they found out he had 2 broken ribs. You know, but
wait a minute, I don't know if MRI is nuclear, but broken ribs are really tricky. But look, just as far as
MRI is radiation. MRI is radiation.
But it's magnetic resonance. I'm not sure what it.
I'm pretty sure it is. Well, I don't know. But
it doesn't matter.
I don't know.
There's a story.
He said it was nuclear. They said it was. They used a nuclear device, and I forget what it could have been. The other one. What's the other one? CAT scan.
CAT scan. But I mean, just.
We got Chris
dental
here.
X-rays alone, just simple film, old X-rays from the 50s and 60s. That kind of stuff saved lots of lives and lots of human suffering. And
we got Chris Bergen here.
Dr. Allison said, you know, the fear of nuclear has killed way more people now, and we're going to. We've really got to address that as activists. You know, and I think I wrote last week when he was on, I think Mueller may have been slightly drunk when he was giving his Nobel acceptance speech.
That's possible.
You know, they celebrate, you know, there's champagne, expensive champagne. Everybody's clinking glasses. And, you know, there's lots of there's lots of hors d'oeuvres and celebrating. I would guess, I don't know, I've never been to a Nobel Prize ceremony, but he just went off script with linear no threshold. And,
By the way, Chris, I made you co-host. So if you want to, if you want to put your video, there you go. There you go.
He's in his truck. It's so cool.
Yeah. That's your home away from home, man.
Where are you, Chris?
Middle America, Indiana.
Okay.
That's so cool.
Yeah.
You know, let's move on from radiation. But wait a minute. Didn't somebody last week mention Guyana or that disaster with the medical?
I don't know, Dr. Allison. I learned by that from a previous podcast that Dr. Allison brought that up, but I don't know if it was brought up last week.
Oh, come on! That to blame nuclear. I mean,
well, it was an accident. It was an accident.
It was a terrible accident. And just
it was a nuclear accident. It was a nuclear
Uh,
accident, but medical
no.
waste is not handled in the same way that spent fuel is. So,
Yeah,
you know,
actually, Gabe, you said that we're in a discussion we were having. You said you accused me of moving the goalpost. And I think
yeah, I
that
did. I did.
well, it was sort of a fair accusation because we often say nuclear waste and spent nuclear fuel, and those are the same things to us. I never talk about medical waste, low level waste, or high level military waste.
Yeah,
Those are
exactly.
completely different things.
That's
And
exactly. I
Frank,
agree with that. I agree with that.
I
Yeah.
don't know if you guys know Martin Krall. He's a great
No.
guy. I really liked interacting with him, and I think he knows a lot about waste. In fact, I think should be our expert. But he and I clashed on ivermectin, just like Haro and I did. So
Of
it's just
what?
unfair. On ivermectin as a treatment for COVID, it's horse
Oh.
dewormer.
Oh, right.
I have no truck with that, none whatsoever. It's bullshit.
Oh, it is bullshit. Oh my God.
So okay, so now there is they want to put a nuclear waste repository in New Mexico, and everybody's gone all super NIMBY on it, and it's just bullshit. And they have this huge salt mine that it's so deep, it's unbelievable. And they want to put nuclear waste down there. I was never clear on whether they wanted to store high level spent nuclear fuel, which nobody's going to be trucking that around at all. And
It can be
or
trucked
just,
around.
well, yeah, but nobody wants it being trucked through their neighborhood, no matter who, what, or where they are. They
Yeah.
think every nuclear fuel truck is going to be going through their neighborhood, like back roads all the way. And so I lost my train of, so they just want to put nuclear waste of any sort down there. And it came to they want to put, rubber gloves and Tyvek suits and just junk from medical hospitals, research, and just non-spent fuel. And I was like, God, that seems like a really expensive way to, and what are they going to do with it? Are they going to just keep checking on it to make sure it's not doing something? What? And I learned that a lot of these salt mines are not static in any way, shape, or form. Some of them that are so deep that the pressure causes the salt to just kind of ooze in as if it's just sort of plastic under the weight and pressure of the 2,000, 5,000 feet of earth and salt and top.
Right.
And some of these things move in at a rate of 6 inches per year.
Mm-hmm.
Holy crap. So that means if you had a 20-foot space, that salt could move in 10 years and just completely encase anything that's there, where it will be geologically stored for, hundreds of millions of years, never to be seen or heard from again.
And that's a positive feature.
That's a great feature. I was blown away. At the time, they were just showing the machines that were continuously carving out this space so that people
they're saving it. Yeah.
They're saving it
Yeah.
so that they could use it, or they had some research or something going on there.
I said shaving.
Shaving, yeah. And I thought, well, at first I thought, well, that's just crazy, it's going to ruin everything in there. And then I realized, no, they're just going to instead of filling with concrete or something, it's just going to fill in naturally with salt and never be seen from again.
Yeah.
And then
But it can't be
pointed
dug
out,
up.
well,
I understand they could dig it up if they want to reuse the fuel.
this is medical waste like gloves and diapers.
Oh, no, I know. But I'm saying those depositories, if you put a spent nuclear fuel down there, you could get it back out. if let's say you decide if we need it for
No,
for
never.
fuel.
Yeah, okay, we're going to have plenty of it. We got plenty of it now. I don't know why anybody would want to go to the effort to put spent nuclear fuel down a hole. I mean, it's like these holes don't exist for nothing. They are not cheap to maintain. There's no reason.
Fuel, my understanding is the spent fuel will not be placed in salt. They'll be placed in bored holes in regular rock, or where they can be retrieved later through their regular rock. The same access way going in and going out. But
that depends on the depository. If it's salt or if it's not, they're two different types.
I think it's all just a moot point. I mean, it can sit in the dry casks forever. And nobody in this country is going to put up with any amount of spent nuclear fuel, no matter how long it's been out of the reactor, going through their town on a train, on a truck, or in a Brinks car. They're just not going to put up with that. It's just NIMBY all the way. And I think
it's ridiculous. It's ridiculous.
Yeah, and I think when we had that talk with my favorite guy, Brett Rampal, and he was in favor of a deep depository, I think the fact that we can talk about it all we want, that's great. But as soon as some anti-nuclear folks get a hold of it, oh, look, they think we need to bury it 3,000 feet deep. And it's romulant.
Yeah, what Brett said, though, was this, and I'm paraphrasing it, I'm pretty sure it said, right, is that, okay, yeah, it's solid, it's and everything, but if it's left out, especially in the salt air, it will degrade over a long period of time unless you put it in some kind of depository. And once it degrades, it could get to a point where, people are exposed to it. So I think I'm putting that right.
They're putting these spent fuels assemblies in stainless steel, welded shut. Okay, and then covering them with, there's concrete and other things, and that concrete is magnetite. It's made with aggregate that's iron ore. It just, I can't imagine any of these things corroding, even down to the fuel. Didn't
he say though that they have to have it so the air gets in there to circulate because it's hot?
Yeah.
Yeah.
So that's your corrosion. That's your corrosion.
It's baffled. Entryway and the exit way for the airflow is baffled. So it's not straight in. It doesn't rain inside it. And then once we get a few reactors, commercial reactors going that are fast reactors, that fuel, that spent nuclear fuel, becomes extremely valuable as future fuel for a fast reactor.
I know.
We have so much of it right now. In Paducah, Kentucky, there's 80,000 tons of UF6. That's all fuel. We could fuel all the reactors of any type for hundreds of years just from that pile in Paducah, Kentucky.
Yeah,
and the fact that
roughly every 40 years that a reactor operates and has spent fuel left over, you have about roughly 700 or 800 years of fuel sitting there as spent fuel for a fast reactor. 40 years of operation becomes 800 years of operation.
Well,
okay, but the thing about this is, we all talk about we need 20,000 reactors or whatever overnight. How are we going to do that in solid fuel? How are we going to make all of those fuel pellets and all of those fuel assemblies and distribute them and then deal with, so one pellet goes bad. A couple of months ago or years ago in China, they had, one tube broke open, little crack, and, the whole world lost its shit. I mean, oh my God, what are we going to do with this? What are we going to do with all of this solid fuel, and how are we going to make it in the first place? I don't see it happening. And I mean, if that's the only reason to go to liquid fueled reactors, let's do it. That's the only reason, but there's so many other reasons.
Yeah.
I just don't see solid fuel. Huh?
It'd be better to grind up the pellets, which means, you have to take them out of the repository, out of the concrete casks, count them, don't lose them, grind them up and pour them into a salt mixture, which gets loaded into a reactor.
Simple as that, huh?
I mean, they bust they bust those fuel assemblies up with big jaw crushers. Yeah,
Well,
they just bust them all up in France. I've seen the whole process, and it's just recycling, just like recycling cans and stoves and cars, except it's all undercover. But I don't think there's any point in reprocessing at this point.
Not at this point, but let me tell you something. Though. Economically, you're right. Politically, I don't think so. And I'm going to tell you something. If I was President Biden right now, okay, I spoke with Ed File about this, and he says, we have everything ready, in terms of the schematics and everything to put up one of my test reactors and get it going. We just need the feds to just let us do it. And I think that if I was President Biden, I would give them the money, or I would go to the American people and say, listen, this nuclear waste problem that we've always had, we finally found a solution.
But it isn't a solution.
Wait, let me finish my thought here. Let me finish my thought. Okay. We have finally found a solution. And just Reagan did this with Star Wars. I mean, I am putting a bill before Congress. We're going to fund this test reactor, and we are going to build a cleanup, a reactor at every nuclear site in order to burn up the waste, because we have this, now we've found the solution. Let's do it. And even if it costs more money, just like with nuclear, American people might go along with that. And there you have a nuclear program.
That just perpetuates this mythology that nuclear waste is harmful. The only reason there's just not enough, you can't burn it fast enough. There's no way.
I know that, but
it's just a stupid thing. and then to spend all of that money on reprocessing, and you're only going to get a ton per gigawatt per year. The deal is with liquid fueled reactors, you just throw it in by the bucket. Fuel is by the bucket. That's how they fueled the MSRE. They put a bucket of fuel in. It's a little thing about the size of a hot dog, and they called it the bucket. And you put a little fuel salt in there and dangled it down into the reactor. And and it just goes for 40 years. To me, solid fuel reactors are like getting a new car with a 10-gallon gas tank, or a 300-gallon gas tank if you're a truck driver. And you only get to use the top 3 gallons of fuel, or the top half gallon of fuel in your car. And every time you need to fuel up, you got to take 9.5 gallons back to the gas station, pump it out, pump in 10 new gallons of fuel, waste of time, waste of money, and use the top 3 gallons or top 5%. It's just crazy to keep doing this batch system. And there's a book called Liquid Fueled Reactors. I have it on, Kindle.
You talking about molten salt, Tim?
No, it's called Liquid Fueled Reactors. I think Scott Medwood has a $150 paper copy, and a lot of people have read it, I guess. I don't know. I read the first 3 pages and said, wow, those are life-changing pages, and I don't want to read anymore because it's really complicated. But those first 3 pages, and it might even be in the first page, I don't remember, talks about what Wade was talking about what he started his talk with. And that was how we moved from different kinds of fuel, how we used it more effectively. And we eventually moved from a batch type system like my wood stove, where I start a fire every other day or two, or every day, twice a day or whatever, to a continuous sort of system, which I'd like to buy a pellet stove, but they're really expensive. Human beings have done that, and it's time for nuclear to do that, to move from a batch system, where we put a batch of fuel in and then we take it out, we put a new batch in, starting and stopping, to a continuous fueled system like a liquid fueled reactor, where you just put fuel in as you need it and you reprocess it as you need it. And we can start these reactors up and we can run them for many, many years before we have to do any sort of reprocessing at all.
What liquid? What liquid are you talking about? What's the liquid?
Well, I'm a fast reactor sort of guy, so just regular old table salt is the liquid that I want to use.
Molten salt, right? Molten salt. No?
Well, yeah, I don't know of any other liquid fueled reactors.
Yeah, that's what I was saying, molten salt
chloride.
reactor.
There's lead, lead cooled. It's where the lead is
That's
faster.
cool. You got
And-
that too. You got that too.
But is the fuel in the lead?
No.
There you go. So, can-do reactors are solid fuel and they refuel on the fly, continuous, but it's sort of a continuous batch sort of thing,
Yeah.
And it seems can-dos, don't get me wrong, I love them, but come on, man, it's just a really a brute force way of refueling a reactor. I thought RMBKs were much more elegant in refueling than a can-do, and graphite moderated as opposed to heavy water. But yeah, it's just the whole deal with are we going to be able to make enough pellets, fuel assemblies, reliably enough? I mean, what if we get 1,000 reactors into solid fuel and then some tube breaks somewhere and we got to shut one down? And I mean, the world's going to lose its shit and we're going to lose all our momentum and we're going to have to go through all of this again. We've got to eliminate this perception that waste is a huge problem. It isn't a problem.
Yeah.
Secretary Granholm said on the NBC thing, oh, it's a problem. We've got to find a depository. Great. So, every interstate is going to have spent fuel in trucks. I'm perfectly fine with that. It's not dangerous, but
And
nobody else
there's not
is
that
going
much
to be
of it.
fine with that.
There's not that much of it.
I was just going to
There's
say
not
that.
that much of it. But I mean,
And it could be hit by a freight train. Nothing's going to happen.
nothing's going to happen.
I mean, it's so perfect safe. I mean,
We could move all of it in like 1 year and be done. It wouldn't be something going on and on and on, through the century.
I still say I like my idea better, the Joe Biden idea better, because
Yeah.
politically speaking, it's gold. It's okay. What I'm telling you is we're going to actually double the amount of reactors, and they're going to be molten salt reactors in a gigantic build. And the thing is,
Wait.
you know,
So, 80,000 tons of UF6, which I don't know if we consider that waste or not, but it's a hell of a lot more dangerous than spent nuclear fuel. It's killed one person already.
what are you talking about? Say again.
Uranium hexafluoride. It's the salt that they get when they reprocess fuel.
Ah.
And it looks just about like salt, and it's super weird, super dangerous, super corrosive. I mean, the containers only last 10 years. It has weird chemistry. It's toxic. It's water soluble. It can exist as a solid, a liquid, a gas in the same container. It's weird shit, whereas spent nuclear fuel taking up important parking space out there.
So you're saying basically that we shouldn't use one drop of it for fuel ever, it's just too dangerous?
No, I'm saying that we should use that up before we start reprocessing and making more of it. I'm unclear, and I wish
I'm
somebody
not
would
clear
help
on
me
what
here.
you're saying.
I'm unclear as to why they chose to reprocess all of this. Well, I guess maybe a lot of it came from the weapons program, but why did we choose to reprocess it into something that is so much harder to store? UF6, uranium hexafluoride. And maybe
are we
didn't.
talking
I might
about the
be-
same thing? Are we talking about the same? I'm talking about like using spent fuel in a molten salt reactor. Is that what you're talking
Right.
about?
It has to be reprocessed for. You can't just
Yes.
throw the pellets into the. So
It depends
We've got
on the
all of
reactor,
this-
but you could. You could.
say again.
It depends on the reactor. Ed File 5 years ago specifically said he could chop up the fuel elements, including the stuff around the pellets, and throw it straight into the reactor. It depends on how
Well,
the
no,
reactor is designed.
you couldn't throw. You'd have to take the pellets out when they I mean, I don't think you can't throw the cladding and all of that stuff in.
Ed Files built a few reactors already, and he said, this is like 5 years ago. And he said his reactor, you could do that. You could throw the cladding straight in, and the cladding would melt, and then he could skim it off as needed to, and sell it to someone if he had a buyer for zirconium.
No kidding.
Yes.
Well,
I talked to him in person. Yeah.
Yeah, I remember him saying something like that.
Maybe he's
Well, there
changed
you
his
go.
mind
That-
since then.
then I
Maybe
would-
he's changed his design since
Here
then.
again, we don't need to do anything like that. Okay. My deal with the nuclear waste is that there's the genetic fallacy, and this is a logical genetic fallacy.
Well, explain
that-
that. Explain that. What's a genetic fallacy mean?
I'll explain it perfectly with this.
Go ahead.
Sometime a long time ago, somebody somewhere, and it was Mueller, said that radiation is really dangerous. Okay. And that is just stuck. And that and then there's another genetic fallacy, and it is that we don't know what to do with the waste. Okay. And what I've been telling and asking people lately is, when you bought your house or when you moved into your apartment or whatever, did you ask the landlord or the real estate agent if there was a functioning toilet there? No, you didn't. You assume that any house that you're going to buy or any place that you're going to move into has a functioning waste disposal system. And why they don't assume that with the very, very smart people who design nuclear power plants is beyond me.
It's
And
not
my
an
proof
honest
is-
argument. It's not an
It's-
honest argument. It's
What
just
isn't an honest argument?
that it's a problem that cannot be solved and all of that.
Exactly. It's not even the people who designed nuclear power plants designed that whole containment building, that whole reactor, and everything about it is designed to handle fuel. The crane inside handles fuel. When they take the fuel out of the reactor, they flood the whole building 30 feet above the reactor. And that's how they get the fuel out. The whole thing is designed. And then there's a door or a tube that they put the fuel through that goes into the cooling pools. All of that poured in concrete. In the containment, it's pressure sealed. All of that is designed to handle fuel. Everything about a nuclear power plant is designed to handle fuel safely and easily. And it's so safe and so easy that it's just damn boring. It's boring. I mean, handling fuel is up, down, left, right, forward, backwards, and a calendar. And you need a stack of calendars. Say a stack of 8 to 10, maybe 12 calendars. That's all you need to handle fuel, spent nuclear fuel safely, and a lot of water. I mean, those spent fuel pools are 40, 50, 60 feet deep. And that all of that fuel is underwater from the time it goes into the reactor to the time it comes out. And it's just, there's a handful of people at nuclear reactor plants. They handle fuel. They receive the fuel, they look at it, inspect it for the 100th time, and then they put it in the reactor, and then they take it out of the reactor and they put it in the cooling pool.
Let me ask you a question. Let me ask you a question. That pool, where is it located in the building? Is it within the containment, underneath the containment dome?
The cooling pool is not within the containment. The cooling pool is outside the containment. Like for instance,
outdoors?
No, I mean, I think some places outdoors, no, they got a cover over them, a building, but it's just a pool of water. People swim around in them. Yeah.
Well, they could.
No, they do.
They have.
Dry suits swim around. Yeah. They replace light bulbs. They replace various things that need to be replaced in the pool. The water is not dangerous. The water is it's just water. And some of that water was in the reactor. And they just pump it all into a tank and reuse it again, I think. But at Diablo Canyon, there's a tube between the reactor, the containment building, and the cooling pool. And when they take the you get that, Mom? When they take the fuel out of the reactor, it's all underwater, and they put it on something called the upender, and it turns it sideways, and then it goes out through the tube, and they pick it up. And I swear to God, they should call it the end upper at the other end, but they don't. And then they put it with all the other spent fuel. And all of those pools were designed to hold a certain amount of years worth of spent fuel. And once it's cooled down, they all underwater, they put it in the dry cask. Although Jim Hoff says that they rinse it off, I'm sure in a container that's shielded. They rinse it off and dry it, and then they put it in the dry casks, and then they put a top on, blow all of the water, all of the gas out of it, and replace it with helium and weld it shut. And I always found that hard to believe. I thought there's no reason for them to weld that shut. It could just be open to the air, but it isn't.
With helium,
or inert gas. I think
inert gas, because helium is there's not a lot of helium on the whole planet. We're running out.
Well,
but some inert gas. If it's some inert gas, that's okay.
It's helium for reasons that are so they can find leaks easier.
They need to find a better thing than helium. They need to find something that's not so rare.
No, they don't. We need to stop using helium for fucking party balloons.
I know that, but I'm going to tell you something. It's not happening. That's capitalism, man. I mean,
Well, we had a strategic.
I agree with you.
We had a strategic supply of helium, and we ran through it, and it was becoming an issue. And I think about 10 years ago, they discovered a whole new reserve of helium in Africa. And so the question now is, are we going to squander it on party balloons and advertising blimps at nuclear rallies? But that use is really, there's just not that much. If we're wasting a lot of it on party balloons.
Yeah, no, I agree with you. I mean, I would pass a law tomorrow saying I've always agreed with that. I'd pass a law tomorrow saying that outlawing party balloons, use the helium use in party balloons. I guess.
Okay, so back to the waste though.
Yeah.
It's just a very small amount of gas, and I think they pressurize it a little so that they can monitor it for leaks. But I'm not sure that really. That's sort of a wonky thing for us to talk about. That's fine. But as far as the public, that stuff is safe as long as you're not licking it or playing with it or something. And
the reason why I bring it up, though, is we're going to have to, I understand we have to build something like 25,000 nuclear reactors on the planet. We got Alfred here.
Yeah. Welcome,
We got Alfred just came. Great.
But there's no reason for us to be scared of. I mean, once that look in 300 years, even fuel assemblies are going to be as basically like the ore that came out of the ground. They're just not that scary.
Mhm.
And
we keep going back.
Yeah. How you doing, Alfred?
Hello, Alfred.
I'm fine. I just wanted to tell you guys that party balloons are only 20% helium, so calm down.
Oh, really? I didn't know that.
You guys know so much, man. I tell you,
No,
I'm just
there's
gonna
all.
mention, we keep running around spent fuel, and if no one that's watched the Royal Commission on Spent Fuel from a few years ago,
That was
go back
great.
and watch the Helen Caldicott, because she didn't have an answer when they came back to her. And this is something where you have to give correct answers. It's a legal proceeding. You can't perjure yourself. So when the commission asked her questions about where do you get this, and please confirm it and give us a study that proves what you're saying about this, and she's just giving them the same spiel she's been giving people for 30 years. All she can say was, I got this big, thick book here, and it's somewhere in here, somewhere along all these papers, this big folder here. I don't know exactly where it is. And it was just so embarrassing for her, even though I don't like her. And then I believe it was the following day. The following day, they had Dr. Geraldine Thomas on, and they asked her pretty much the same questions and even gave her some follow-up things about Dr. Caldicott had mentioned this yesterday. And Jerry Thomas knew exactly what she was talking about. She was quoting specific studies, and she was taking notes herself. Oh, you want me to send you that? Yes, I can do that, and I'll send you that one too. And it was completely different in how she presented herself and her knowledge base. So
that
go
should
back
be
and watch.
Required viewing for all nuclear activists, both of them. They were just. The difference, and frankly, like you said, I mean, I can't stand Helen Caldicott, but I was embarrassed for her. I was like, oh my God, lady. It was just wow.
Do you guys have a link to that? Because I think I could watch it on a loop.
You what?
Do you guys have a link to that? I haven't heard of that presentation.
I'll send you a link. Wow.
Wow. Yeah,
right,
that's a video.
Hey, let's go
Is
on
it on
with,
video?
Let's keep on going.
Well, hold on. That I want that because I could make I tell you, I spoofed it before, and like people said you shouldn't do that.
No,
but I don't give it crap.
It was like
I don't give it crap. She deserves to be embarrassed.
But she's not embarrassed.
The hell with her.
It's us that's embarrassed.
I don't care if she cares. I mean, the thing is, that's irrelevant. That's irrelevant. The thing is that she needs to be exposed for the fraud that she is.
If you ask the Australians, they say she's largely irrelevant now. So.
Oh yeah, she got one foot in the grave.
Maybe in Australia, but I mean,
I don't
she's
know,
still. I mean, all of the current generation of anti-nuclear people, they treat her like, they treat her like grandma, like she's still held in a great deal of respect, and they trot her out every once in a while when they want to get serious.
She's 3 generations of anti-nuclear bullshit. Mm-hmm. It's sad. I don't know.
Going back to Dr. Wade. Going back to Dr. Wade, I mean, he nailed it. I mean, the nuclear weapons, in order to stop the nuclear arms race, people exaggerated the radiation fear.
I really like that he was into the social aspect of nuclear as much as he is, and I think that'll tie in really nicely with Dr. Kruglansky, the psychologist guy.
Mm-hmm.
You got to get him on.
Well, but the thing is, I've been looking for. Okay, so let's triangle. I was looking for a third leg, and I think that he might be that. Dr. Allison. So I'm going to write him a letter and say, hey, look, there's this guy, Dr. Kruglansky, who's talking about the psychology of persuasion, and especially on social media. And maybe get, somebody from Oxford would definitely, pique Dr. Kruglansky's interest. Because, we're just a real small group and he doesn't know what we're doing.
Yeah.
But
I had tried to do that with him, by the way. I tried to use him as to get it somebody, other people from Oxford. But what he told me was that he's been so out of touch with the people who are there right now. And he don't, they're, he's like retired for so long. And
and like I wanted my friend Allison Green. She's real big into Extinction Rebellion in England, and she's a psychologist. And she's just so anti-nuclear. It's just sad and embarrassing, when you see these really smart people who are, she likes to go on these hikes up in around England, and on that day when I asked her to, tune into the podcast, she had just was hiking on the other side of the fjord from Sizewell, and the abbey that she was visiting was looking nervously upon Sizewell's reactor. Really? Seriously? And just nothing I say gets through to her. And I've always just said, look, let's you and I not talk about the technical aspects of nuclear. Let's talk about the sociology and the social media part of it. And she's just been reluctant to. And I think if Wade Allison, Professor Emeritus at Oxford, and Dr. Kruglansky and Allison kind of had a discussion, we could really make some hay there.
You want to get the two of them on at once? Is that what you're saying?
I say three of them,
that would be
and
good
to see what they talk about.
That would be good.
Yeah.
But you got to find out, you're doing this with him. So you got to check with that's your thing.
And this is sort of,
and we could get Dr. Allison. I think Dr. Allison he's open, he wants to, he'll pretty much come on anytime as long as we can reach him,
I just thought that was really interesting. And then we got to talk about Aberfan. We got to talk about DART, which I thought he said it was a PR stunt.
I disagree with that totally. But
I did too. And I wanted to bring up, okay, so we had that meeting, I think the day of that they actually hit the thing. And then some weeks later, they had found out that, they really did make a difference in the orbit of the smaller asteroid around the bigger one. And, Dr. Allison said, what do you mean? What orbit? And I think that was the deal with that. If they had just gone out and found some asteroid by itself, they couldn't measure the trajectory, how much they changed it or if they changed it. So they found one that was orbiting another, and they decided to change the satellites.
Yeah, that was before the show, by the way. It was never recorded, but he was just uninformed about it. And
and so I think I'm going to write him a letter and say, hey, look what this is. And then I thought about this. Remember when we were talking about EVs, EV or not to EV?
Yeah.
And I was bringing up forklifts, and because they are a paradox to the rules of batteries, and that the weight is an asset. It's something that's, you need weight.
Yeah.
And so, electric forklifts were like, wow, we could put a big giant battery in there. And it's an advantage because, like I said, it's the weight.
All right.
And that isn't the case in, what are you shaking your head for, Alfred?
Is my mic on? Yeah, electric forklifts are dog shit.
Oh, they're very popular, and
They're
I've used them.
popular for the same reason all electric stuff is popular. It's FOMO. Everyone wants to be green, everyone wants to be high tech. So the people who buy the forklifts and the people who drive the forklifts are not the same people.
Yeah, but I gotta disagree with you, Alfred.
I like electric forklifts.
Let me say one thing. Let me say one
very
thing.
popular in
If I'm in a building, in an enclosed building, I don't want these things to be running around putting out carbon monoxide all over the place.
Please stop. I know what you're saying. I get
Yeah,
it. That's a great argument. But look, you got to understand, it doesn't matter how good the fumes are if the fucking thing doesn't work. All right?
They don't work.
They don't work. I am around forklifts, nearly every damn day. And it was a big deal going from diesel to propane for the emissions issue. Okay, and management didn't want to go to propane because they were too expensive, and because you actually have to know what you're doing when you're refueling them. Anyone can refuel a diesel forklift. But now we have
propane forklift.
Oh,
it's easy to refuel a propane forklift.
You do. It is easy if you know what you're doing, but you can't just walk up and do it. You don't give it to the new guy. But the flip to electric forklifts has been the opposite. Management wants them because they look sexy. The people who use them don't want them because they work like ass. You mentioned about the weight being an advantage. They're not a paradox at all, actually, because the power demands for a forklift are so much higher that big battery that's doubling as a counterweight just vanishes.
Wow.
Okay.
No, I mean, electric forklifts have been around for a long time.
And they don't.
Not my point.
Tim, I literally see this with my own eyes every day.
I drove a forklift for 20 years.
Electric forklifts do not operate for the entire workday.
I was going to point this out. It's usually a one shift operation. You can't.
They don't even operate for a shift. And when you have to buy 2 or 3 times the forklifts to get through the day, they're a much less attractive option.
Well, they're very popular in the wine industry. Still, again, not my point. Didn't want to get off in the weeds in forklifts.
So,
however, I wanted to relate this. I wanted to relate this to DART. Okay.
Of electric forklifts, and always the propane lifts come in and finish out the workday. It's really sad.
I have hardly run any electrics. I've run propanes for 20 years. Easy to refuel. Like them a lot. The fumes are not a problem. I mean, you're running a forklift in and out of a warehouse. You got a big door. Open the door. Not my point. The point I wanted to relate was, okay, so if we start this planetary defense thing, the weight is going to be an asset, right? So we got these big things. It's going to be interesting. We could just park a big rocket motors and fuel tanks in orbit.
Tim, there's no situation in space engineering where the weight is an asset. Have you heard of the tyranny of the rocket?
Wait a minute. We need the weight to move the asteroid. So this is going to be one of those satellites where the weight is going to be an asset. I just thought that was fun. But anyway.
Tim, no, just stop. Just stop with this science fiction nonsense, okay? DART was a fun experiment for NASA. I'm glad we learned a lot. If there is actually an asteroid coming for Earth, we're not going to do any fucking DART shit. We're going to throw like 50 nukes at it, okay? Bigger than the Tsar bomb.
Wait. No. We just decided that blowing it up was going to be worse. So this is why they did
wait.
DART thing.
Can I say something about that? I kind of agree. I agree with both of you. I think, and I might be wrong. I'm no astrophysicist, but if you can send a DART thing, just like to hit the darn thing, I don't know why you couldn't put a Zarabamba on it and send it with the Zarabamba if you needed to, which would be the next step. Am I right about that?
You can.
No, I think it just needs to be heavy and going fast. That's
Yeah.
all DART was, but
Yeah.
wasn't that heavy.
Yeah, so
Look,
that was the
it's
first
just,
step.
It's just an application of force, and you can get
Right.
a lot more force from a nuclear bomb than a rock.
Yeah, absolutely. But the DART was
But
a
the
good
point
step in that
was-
direction, though. It was a good step in that direction, because if you could do a direct hit, like I said, I mean, if you could do a direct hit, normally that's the next step, is putting the nuke on it. And I think that Tim, if it's a matter of getting it off course, the bomb will do the job real good, and especially if it's that big that it needs that kind of force to move it.
Mhm.
Well, we've already tested the impactor, so I think that works pretty good. But
Yeah. It depends on the size. It depends on the size, and it depends
Yeah.
on the
well,
on the
according to
emergency.
that was
You know,
a fully loaded refrigerator against something the size of a small pyramid. So, I think it was pretty much successful and
I
not a
think so,
PR
too.
stunt.
no, it wasn't a PR thing. I agree with you.
What
agree
else
with
did he
you.
say that I was like, oh, wow, that's just not right either?
That was before the program, but
No, he said that during the program, I think.
no, I didn't. I did. I'm pretty sure it was before the program.
Oh,
I edited it. I
vertical
know.
farming.
You know.
Oh, okay.
But,
Vertical farming.
Yes.
That was really surprising. I don't know.
I
when
don't
anybody
disagree
said-
with him. I don't disagree with him. I
I-
think that
I-
it's speculative. I mean, he wasn't saying like, he's saying, it's got a lot of potential to do big things.
I've
that it
always
can't
said
do
the same
presently.
thing. Vertical farming is to agriculture what solar is to energy. I mean, there's places
Right
like
now,
Salinas.
right now it is.
There's places like Salinas where you're driving at 65 miles an hour, and it takes 5 minutes to drive by one lettuce farm. So,
And I'll
just,
tell you,
there's just not that much stuff you can
I'm
grow.
going to tell you something else, though,
Vertical
Tim.
farming is a solution looking for a problem.
Well, there
There
will
you
be a
go.
problem, though.
That is a
there's not
perfect-
problem.
There
Everything
will be a problem.
everything
with
you hear
climate.
on the news about agriculture this, agriculture that is just alarmist dipshits.
Yeah,
And if you
I have
dig
to
into the
agree.
details, you find out it's the exact same people that are spreading the nuclear alarmism. Okay.
Yeah, but wait. Let's say if you got a 4-degree increase in the climate, in the temperature of the planet, you got problems for agriculture. I mean, there reaches a point where you have what is it like? You can't grow stuff because it's so hot, and
No, there's a lot of people say we're going to have more places to grow things because it's be warmer.
It goes every which way. Okay.
Yeah.
And there's also a range of solutions across that range of problems. To take a small speculative problem and then immediately jump entirely to one massive solution, which is what vertical farming is just madness.
well, also, and Dr. Wade brought this up, was the thing that you are using less space. It's not a matter, you don't have to have logistics for delivery. You don't have to worry about the weather. If you have a cold, like a polar vortex, wipe out your crop. That's not a problem with it. I mean, when you got really crazy weather.
Like Alfred says, you've just elaborated on a bunch of not a problems.
I don't know. Farmers get wiped out with bad weather and bad seasons, floods.
Yeah, well, indoor
freezing
crops,
and
you have problems spread much faster. I mean, there's water, there's lighting. There's only
10 times
probably
the crops per acre is 10 times the liability.
say
what you mean
again.
by that?
10 times the crops per acre is 10 times the liability. Like our existing
Yeah.
Our
There you go.
existing, like, really spread out farming is insurance. Yeah, a farmer gets wiped out by this or that on any given year, but it's always a small effect and it's always a different farmer. If you densify agriculture to a few buildings and then, one of those buildings has a fire, there's your entire strawberry crop or something.
Well,
Yeah, and there's
that depends on how concentrated.
There's very few crops that they can grow indoors. I mean, I don't think I've ever seen a loaf of bread that's been grown indoors.
No.
People say, I can grow wheat indoors.
You can grow lettuce, and I think tomatoes.
The only ones that are done profitably in competitive markets are leafy greens, and
like
really
cannabis,
has to be the cheap ones.
like
And the only ones
cannabis.
that are done, and the only ones that are done profitable and popularly are like small berries and vegetables in climates where you can't get them shipped in, where they just have control of the market. But that's it. Like staple crops are useless, and then competitive agricultural markets you have a hard time in.
You're just never going to grow an onion or a potato, or it's just. And
I don't like the word never. I don't like the word never.
Oh,
never
come on.
practically.
Walla
How
onions.
about that, Gabe?
Not when it comes to technology. I don't like the word
Walla
never.
onions take 364 days from seed.
I think it depends on how cheap your energy becomes as well.
It depends entirely on how cheap your energy becomes. And
it could become extremely cheap.
We know approximately, how cheap vertical farming needs it to be, and we know how cheap nuclear can make it, and they just barely touch. Like, it's not going to be.
But that's right now. That's what I keep saying.
No, I'm talking about in the future.
But wait,
they just barely touch.
I'm going to throw something at you guys, and here's the thing.
Vertical farming depends on the local markets. If it's very expensive to ship in food, if there's bad agriculture in the region, if there's high tariffs or this, that, or the other thing, it can fill a niche, potentially a large niche. But for the entire world, fuck no.
No, not even close. I know the original grower of high-end mesclun salad mix, Todd Coons, 15 years ago. And he was shipping high-end salad mix from Salinas by air to New York. And I think he was charging $27 a pound or something. That was way back when. Now you get that same exact salad mix for $3.95.
Guys, you're missing something. You guys are missing something. And I'm going to tell you, automation. Because this is what's happening.
More expensive.
Let me speak.
More expensive.
You're increasing
right now,
the energy requirements of the vertical
right
farm.
now. I know that, but let me speak on that.
And
automation. Well, let me talk, man. Okay. It's hard for me to get a word edgewise, you guys. Automation. If automation goes far enough, all you have is a very, very small amount of people doing maintenance on machines and programming and computer engineers.
Dave,
it's a tiny amount.
I know what you're saying. Let me just cut you right the hell off. Everything with automation works better on a conventional farm than a vertical farm.
There you go.
Okay.
Good point.
Those robot arms that do the picking, you can mount, whether you mount them from the roof or from a gantry that spins around the field, it's the same robot. Okay.
That's a good point.
I grant that.
Remember, the conventional farm gets so much for free. Okay. It's very difficult to get better than free. You're getting the free sunlight. You're getting the free oxygenation from the atmosphere. You're getting the free nutrients from the soil.
Carbon dioxide.
You're getting a huge amount of your water for free from the rain. But with a vertical farm, you've got to supply everything.
But you're also getting a huge amount of pests, a huge amount of weeds.
No.
Issues.
No.
And the costs are dropping every day. As long as we can prevent those kooks from banning glyphosate, we'll be fine.
It's just size. I know people who work on I know a guy who worked on a sod grass farm, and I mean, he's 2 hours on a tractor before he had to turn. Yeah, it's just. You say you're going to do that in a building?
Well, Tim, you know that these days the tractors drive themselves, right?
Oh yeah.
Yeah. So he's on a podcast for that whole time.
No, this was 10 years ago.
Okay. But now the tractor drives itself, and you just kind of hit the button every once in a while.
Yeah, they got GPS that will run a bulldozer or a scraper to within about 1/4 of an inch over 100 acres for making like rice fields and stuff. Those things are flying.
All right, I got another problem for you guys. The runoff.
It's going to be worse with an indoor farm.
Why?
It's the sewage.
What, you think they're going to recycle all that water?
Why not?
And you say the
Why
pests.
not? Why not?
Okay, so
how is it?
the thing
Gabe,
about,
how is it bad to just have water go back into the environment? Like what is this runoff issue you're talking about? Why is it even an issue?
Oh my God! It's runoff is a horrible issue, man. It's like
well, no.
You got dead seas coming.
No. Your conventional farm runoff, if it's not toxic or contaminated with a lot of stuff, it's just water. And
no, you got
phosphates.
You got phosphate fertilizer that runs into the ocean.
Phosphate fertilizer is good for everything.
Yeah, it's good, but it's good for algae blooms that destroy the ocean. Because it's not recycled.
Let phosphate runoff, any kind of fertilizer runoff is loss of profit. It's just a mistake on the farmer's part. If you're getting runoff, then you've done something wrong. But or like selenium, which is a runoff, it's caused by extra water where there was no water before. That's a problem. But you're saying they're going to transfer that runoff, however toxic it is, to the municipal septic system? No. I mean, it's the same with the pot farmers here,
Well, if it's phosphate though, Tim, it's not toxic runoff. If it's recycled into the system, it's food for the plants. It can't go into the ocean. That's the thing.
That's just not true. And then let's get back to the pests. Well, because you say it's going to be a hydroponic system or some kind of soil-less system or a mix of soil. There's going to be some sort of liquid waste. I mean, there's the plants aren't.
If they overwater the plants, they'll be waste.
Say again.
They will probably give them 1/10 the water they normally get out in nature.
Yes.
They'll give them the amount of water that the plants will drink.
Yeah.
There'll be very little waste.
Oh, yeah. I don't think that's the way it works.
Well,
it is the way it works.
Let's get an expert that's actually doing this.
We need to.
No,
we need to.
I grow all my stuff indoors, and it is essentially the same as a large commercial. I start all my plants indoors. I basically in water and a sterile. It's called soil, but it isn't like soil at all. It's mostly sawdust. That's all indoor stuff, and it is it's work intensive, water intensive. And then here, let's move on from this. People tell me, hey, Tim,
let's do a show on this.
Gabriel,
Let me get an expert.
I just got to say one thing. Yes, get an expert, do a show on it. But I just got to tell you one thing. You got to understand. You got to just exercise a little bit of skepticism, a little bit of caution when you read that bullshit. For many years, I used to say all the same stuff that you're saying, Gabriel. But then I actually learned a little bit about agriculture. Here's what you got to understand. Farmers are right behind, like it's a real right. They're in second place, right behind nuclear engineers as the most hated and misunderstood profession on the planet.
Yep.
Pretty much everything you read about them, if you're on the first page of Google, you are reading nonsense propaganda.
Wow. I confess, I am guilty I'm
every
guilty. I don't know much about farming.
everything
right,
that you're
here's
talking
something
about,
I admit
the
it.
agricultural
I
industry
admit
is
it.
well aware of and working on day and night, and they're making so much progress.
Yeah, I admit
There
it.
is.
I admit it. If I don't know, I tell you I don't know. You know?
Like I've
Okay.
only just started recently learning about agriculture and farming, but every time I look somewhere, it's like, oh my God, they've got that figured out. They've got that figured out. I would have never even knew that was a problem, and they solved it without me noticing. And you just find that constantly.
Yeah, I do too. I mean, the thing about glyphosate, it's just so misunderstood. I mean,
It's like the perfect
you know,
fertilizer.
huh?
It's like the perfect fertilizer.
Glyphosate is
I mean,
Roundup.
not fertilizer, pesticide.
Pesticide.
It really is. I've been using it for I've been using it since I was a kid. And I admit I was scared of it when I was younger. And now, oh my God, it's really it's a perfect product.
I used to be scared
It's
of it
just
too.
easy
I
to
used be
mix,
scared of it too.
easy to spray. It's very, very effective. There's no lasting effects. I have never been able to kill an insect or anything with it. I don't use any protective equipment. It's just so innocuous. But people are terrified of it.
I'm going to tell you
Terrified.
something. I'm going to tell you something. We got a problem in our legal system that if you have a trial and things go to court, there has to be a jury of your peers. And if they're going to have science, a chemical like glyphosate or a nuclear power plant, any kind of lawsuit that involves a technology or a chemical, the jury should be scientific people who are qualified to make a judgment on it.
I got to cut you off there. You just made two huge fundamental mistakes. First of all, the jury shouldn't be anything. You've gone against 1,000 years of Western jurisprudence with that suggestion.
Why?
It's your peers. It's your peers.
That's the peers.
No, that's not what that means.
Scientists are not your peers.
The jury is not supposed to come in with information outside the case.
Yes.
And secondly, even bigger than the misunderstanding jury's mistake, no scientific question belongs in court. The two philosophies have no overlap.
But they end up in court.
How
do you settle this?
That is a failure of democracy.
How do you settle that though? How do you settle it? If I feel that I'm,
you've got the wrong end of the situation, Gabe. They're not deciding. They're not deciding the science. They're not deciding if it's safe or not safe. They are deciding that these poor people have been through so much and they've been worried about stuff and they've been through something horrible. Someone should have to pay. Someone should have to pay. And for all the drama and the emotional drain on the family, they award the family multi-million-dollar lawsuits against Monsanto or whoever because Monsanto has money and Monsanto was somewhat involved.
Well, when Monsanto existed, they had money.
Yeah.
They don't exist anymore anyhow.
The huge case that was decided is local to me. I'm pretty sure I've driven by that guy's place. And he uses Roundup the same as we all do. Kind of like on the weeds that you can't pull or dig up, and on brush like blackberries, and around here they use it a lot on poison oak. And it's like you use it on something, you use it on, say, a big patch of poison oak. Well, then you kill it. You don't need to go back and do it again. But according to this lawsuit, this guy had been spraying every year these huge amounts of Roundup, and none of it made sense. I don't think a guy could afford to buy that much Roundup and then to keep doing it every year and have it not be effective. None of it made sense. And then furthermore, I find out that the lawsuit isn't about whether glyphosate causes cancer. It's about whether Monsanto put adequate warning on the label.
Right.
So it really didn't have anything to do with science. It was really did they advertise this false?
But it did have something to do
lie?
with science. If it's not dangerous, they didn't need to put it on the label to begin with.
It had to do with science and that it confused the general public and scared a lot of people. It was the way lawyers, mischaracterize science, but the case itself had nothing to do with science.
And there's just no amount of, I mean, you can take that. There's a meme. Idor Chalamet was really into it and thoughtscapism. And it's all of the quotes from all of the different health organizations. And one of the last ones was, was the USDA one. And it said something like, yeah, it has the same ability to cause cancer as being a barber and something else. I can't remember what, but using Roundup is the same risk as being a barber. Come on. And
I gotta back up though. Like Alfred, like you're saying that this does not belong in jurisprudence. And if you have, I got a question here. If a corporation came out with some kind of chemical that is actually toxic to the public and they didn't give a good crap about it, and you didn't have any system of legal redress against it, and they kill people, I mean, how do you not take that to court? I mean, if you can't take it to court, that seems like the corporation could just.
The science has to be decided before you go to court. That's why all of our regulators have huge laboratory departments. Okay. They do a study, they do a lot of research, they double check the studies that were submitted to them from the manufacturer, they compare them and they go, oh, you missed this, this is actually dangerous. And we found this huge page missing out of the middle, this chapter missing out of the middle of your publication. And we think that our stuff is actually that part that you cut out. Therefore, you lied to the general public. We're taking you to court.
For instance,
You take it to court.
Yeah, but the court doesn't do any of the science. The court can't say glyphosate does or does not cause cancer. Okay. The court can just say, based on such and such evidence, we think that such and such was possibly negligent.
Yeah.
Take, for instance, Farallots. Okay. They're doing the mouse eradication project. They want to put this really nasty poison out, not very much of it. And they did it on another island just south of Farallots called Anacapa. The two biologists that work for the state, they share an office, okay? And one guy did the environmental impact report for Anacapa. And then years later, his office mate was doing the environmental impact assessment for Farallots. And he says, okay, give me the MSDS for the poison. And he put that in the record, okay? The material safety data sheet for the poison. Now, the antis who don't want this project to proceed said, no, you got to find a different MSDS for the same poison. You just took his work and repeated it. And it's just a way of dragging it out so that they can find more and more people on their side. They do this with glyphosate. If one person says it's not harmful, they'll find somebody else that says it is.
Yeah, courts are a perfect place to filibuster valuable public policy, because most people make the same mistake that Gabe just made, where you assume that the court
I don't know if that's a mistake.
The court doesn't.
It is a mistake.
The court doesn't.
If you make a good point, I'll agree with you. But I'll tell you what.
The court doesn't think about stuff. The court doesn't analyze stuff. The court is not made up of a nonpartisan body of learned individuals that will puzzle out the correct solution.
Well, that's what I'm saying. It should be.
The court, it can't be. That's not how laws work.
Alfred's right. It should not.
The court is just a place where you argue in a very formal way.
Okay.
Well, and it's also a place. It's also a place where people say, "Look, the law says this. We know it's wrong, but this is the court.
But
this is the way it's going to be.
the,
It's going to
the
be the way it
mistake the
says.
general public makes is when they hear something is happening in court, they assume that some
They think it's
profound
right.
decision. They assume that some profound decision is being made, and this is really easy to do after journalists get done pulling out all the important stuff for the headline, or rather hiding it from the headline. So people think that this glyphosate trial decided that glyphosate was poisonous when, as Tim just pointed out, it was about a labeling thing. And it's a wonderful way to filibuster public decision, and you see it happen 5 times, 10 times with every nuclear power plant.
Yeah, but wait.
And I sat in on a couple of those hearings for Vogtle, and it was like, what the fuck is this nonsense?
Okay, but wait.
Well, the first people in front of me in Diablo, one lady was saying that Diablo's reactor is made of copper. Well, then it shouldn't have any embrittlement problems, huh? Because copper is much more ductile than steel. I mean, it's just crazy that lies, fear, uncertainty, and doubt,
Oh, that's true. Of course. But here's the thing.
Well, in a lot of these science cases, we may as well be arguing about the validity of the number 7.
All right, wait. Let me tell you. Okay, so you did all your scientific stuff. Science is not something where it's set in stone. They do the studies.
Yes, it is.
Okay, let me finish.
No, quick pause.
Go ahead.
I know what he's going to say.
This is one of the fundamental issues with this whole idea of science in court. Science is never set in stone. The entire purpose of the court is to set something in stone. Okay, the two philosophies are
That's a good point.
Are at odds.
That's a good point. But let me say
also,
that. Let me say something.
But if it's a science fact,
yeah, give me a break. Because I was trying to say something.
Looking at this meme.
Okay, hold on. Let me make my point here. Okay, so science is not set in stone. So we do our animal tests. We do our tests with a group of humans on a drug, whatever the product is that could harm the public. It could happen, and has happened, that when you put it out in the public, it actually does turn out to be toxic. So where do you go from there?
Mitigation, yeah.
Where do you go? Now people are sick.
The proof is in the pudding. The proof is in the pudding. Now let's get back to glyphosate, okay?
Okay.
This has been the most popular pesticide or herbicide, I can't remember what it is, in the fucking world.
It's both. Go ahead.
It's been the most popular, farm sprayer for the last 40 or 50 years in the entire world. We've used trillions and trillions of gallons of it. We would have fucking noticed if it poisoned anyone by now.
Yeah.
I agree, but I'm talking about the concept. I'm not talking about glyphosate. I agree with you on flat, but I'm talking about conceptually. Look
at a time where it went wrong is thalidomide.
Thalidomide. I was going to bring that up.
Thalidomide.
I was born with 6 fingers on each hand.
Yeah.
Thank you.
The European regulator did all the tests and said, "Oh, this is safe." The US FDA did all the tests and said, "Yeah, no, we're going to keep this on the back burner for another couple of years." And of course, we know how that went.
Yeah,
I was going to bring thalidomide baby.
Huh?
I was a thalidomide baby. I had 6 fingers on each hand and a bunch of extra teeth.
Really?
Yeah. And you talk too much. I think that's a thalidomide too.
What?
My mom took it for 2 weeks.
And then had it all chopped off?
No. My mom took it thalidomide for morning sickness, which was
you're serious about that?
Weeks.
I thought you were kidding around. Really? Wow.
Yeah, I still got a little bump right here.
Wow, interesting.
This one got burned off on a griddle clean.
Interesting. Well, okay.
But now thalidomide, they did use it for inducing birth defects in laboratory animals, and now they use it to treat leprosy.
It's actually
Wow.
still used for a lot of things, but the key, as with everything else, is that the dose makes the poison.
Yeah.
We just use it much more carefully and on a smaller, more needful subset of things, not as a general therapy.
Yeah.
And of course,
But you
it's not
didn't,
and it's of course never given to pregnant women.
of course, but
Um,
we went off into the woods though, because you didn't really answer my question. What
No.
happened? What happened? Don't you have to end up in court when the damage is already done that the scientists did not anticipate?
Yeah. Okay. But
No,
yeah.
but
Okay,
my
Gabe.
point
But
is we just
$400
we
million.
no, but the point is that we notice these things when okay, the system, if you do all those many tests, they catch very nearly everything. When we went back and investigated, we found out that the European test where they approved thalidomide had not been done correctly. Okay, if you do all the tests, you typically catch things, and that thalidomide is a special case because it mainly affects pregnant women, and we don't want to do tests on pregnant women, so that's an obvious blind spot. So yeah, if you do all the tests, you'll catch almost everything, and then as a last resort, like I said, the proof is in the pudding. When you release these compounds or machines or whatever to the general public, because it's not just chemistry tests, it's also UL testing. We could be talking about electrical appliance. When you release it to the general public, you really quickly find out if there's a safety issue. I mean, about
Not necessarily. It might take a decade.
You really quickly find out and can pull the brakes.
How long did those lawn darts last?
Just a few years. And for the record, you can still play lawn darts. They're not illegal. That's an urban legend.
Oh, I know, but I mean, it was
What
just
is that?
just such a strange thing to be.
You just threw a big spike at a hoop, and it was lawn darts. It's exactly what it sounds like. But in like the 80s, like one kid got beaten in the head and died. So there was the huge Mothers Against Lawn Dart panic, and they got banned. But
Mothers Against Lawn Darts.
And it's which is sad. I mean, I don't want to make light of it, but also like, okay, you've got to know, like, this is the sharp. It's kind of like the don't drive your car with with the sunshade deployed warning sign. Like, you've got to know, like, this is an 18-inch long sharp object that you're horking.
Yeah, but kids are using it though.
You should know. You should be able to. Anyone who's been around a toddler for 5 minutes should know to keep track of them.
Well, isn't there a meme?
You're talking about kids here, man. Kids will do anything. I mean,
Wasn't there a meme that said, back in the 70s, your car came with a manual that said how to adjust the valves, and today's manual says don't drink battery acid.
Yes.
It really is.
I saw that.
So lawn darts are banned for retail sale, manufacture, and large importation. You can still play lawn darts. You can still make them yourselves. You can still buy them at any flea market. And you can still, if they're in your luggage and they're for personal use, you can still get them from another country.
What about BB guns?
Only the commercial aspect of lawn darts is banned.
Yeah. What about BB guns though? You can still buy BB guns? I don't
know BB gun rules off the top of my head. I think it's state.
Them things are freaking dangerous as hell, man. Oh my God, I could take a person's eye out.
You're taking away all the fun. How are people going to watch reruns of Leave It to Beaver and understand what the plot is if they're not allowed to have their own BB gun?
Well, I mean, they find out lately that kids, they have these playgrounds where they just put pallets and hand saws and hammers and nails and rope and tires and stuff, and kids get hurt, and they learn not to throw pallets at each other and stuff like that.
I love those playgrounds. They've also done studies that our modern playgrounds are so safe now that it's actually affecting children's development.
Yeah,
because you evolve. Well, you evolve to get scratched and knocked around and maybe even one or two broken bones to trigger your growth. Like, you need to be a little bit hard edged.
Yeah.
Well, it's just
well,
and learning to
I
play
like
with.
safe playgrounds.
Well, but yeah, no, and it was like
I'm
the
not
one I
saying we
saw
put
was
playgrounds over a lava pit, but you also got to let kids be kids.
yeah,
Yeah,
and they need
I
to
agree with
learn it.
that.
You
I
know,
agree with
it's
that
like,
part. But BB guns are damn dangerous stuff. Oh, I mean, losing an eye is not just a little injury.
You know,
know?
you say BB guns are dangerous, but BB guns are a toy from the 50s, 60s, and 70s. In the
So-
1910s, 1920s, and 1930s, they just gave you a 22 long rifle and said, "Have fun, little Timmy."
Yeah, well, that doesn't mean that we should be giving them to kids now. You
They
know?
actually, there was actually, I can't remember the exact name of it, but there was actually a specific make and model of 22 long rifle
For kids.
that not just made for kids, but it was a takedown rifle, and it broke in half and folded up in a way specifically so that you could put it over the center bar of a bicycle.
Yeah,
Okay.
but I mean,
Could
just because
you-
we
could
just
you
because we did
imagine
it
that
doesn't mean
in
we
the
should
day of
do it.
school shooters?
Come on, I mean, just because we did it doesn't mean we should do
Did-
it. You
did
know,
any
that's
of you
not
get
that's
Michael
not
Schellenberger?
good
You could
reasoning.
buy that. You could buy in 1915 or 1920, whenever it was popular. You could buy that rifle for $10, and the receipt to buy it, because this is all through the mail. You tear the receipt out of the Boy Scout magazine, fill it out, put your $10 in, send it to Remington, and your rifle would be in the mail in like 2 weeks.
I don't like that idea. I'm sorry.
did anybody see Schellenberger? Did anybody see Schellenberger's email today?
No.
No. What's the
He's
story
talking
with
about
him?
that guy that attacked Pelosi.
What did he
You know,
say?
Oh, Schellenberger
Well,
talks about everything.
He's an
he does.
asshole.
I don't really like him
I'm
much,
sorry
but he
I
has a
said that.
point today. Is
Sorry it came
All
out,
it-
but I didn't want to say it, but I just said it. So
they're trying to
Save me the
they're
trouble.
trying to get to paint this guy as some sort of right-wing lunatic, and he's not. He's just a lunatic. He's a nudist pedophile or something. And
he's a right-wing
Yeah,
lunatic.
they almost
no,
are just
it's not
regular
fair.
lunatics.
It's not fair for to make political hay out of something that's a lie. The
Let me
guy
tell you,
has
That's what
no-
because
The guy
that
was a
kind
right-wing
of that kind of profile is what makes the right wing lunatics.
exactly. Exactly. I mean,
You know,
the
I
guy
don't
is a
normally
right-winger
agree- I
and he's a
don't normally
lunatic.
agree with Michael.
I mean, he could be a
Schellenberger,
left-winger
but-
and a lunatic, but he is a right-wing lunatic. And, you know, that's it.
No, he's drug.
He thinks the
addled
elections
and
were
crazy.
stolen. He thinks that Joe Biden is not
No,
president.
Gabriel, that's not what Tim's saying.
I don't, maybe
Yeah,
I'm losing it.
it's-
What's Tim trying to say? I'm losing it there. What?
He's
I'm trying
just a
to-
lunatic.
He's just a lunatic. I mean, you know,
I got that, but I disagree with you. His politics are right wing.
He
No,
doesn't
he's
have
right.
They're
politics. He's a
not.
lunatic.
He's both, you know.
he's had other what we consider left wing politics. He's
okay.
just a lunatic, and he's had drug problems and anger management issues, and he's just a
Sure.
really nasty guy. And for anybody to make political hay on either side is just wrong. And actually,
But they will.
Schellenberger got it wrong about that guy who shot that lady in San Francisco. He was just a lunatic, and Schellenberger was like, "Oh no, it was Sanctuary City and all that crap." And you know, it's basically the same sort of situation now.
Everyone
Broken clock
does
got it
that
right.
when it's their own politics. Schellenberger was probably running for governor at the time, and his
Yeah,
big
yeah.
issue was
You know,
homelessness.
I
That
don't
guy-
like. I don't like the
that
way
guy
he
was-
cherry picks. It sounds like he's just playing to a certain audience to build his to keep his shtick going. You know,
That guy that shot that woman, he said he found the gun and it went off accidentally, which I sort of believe him. I believed him when he said that. And then look at his face. The guy is mentally deranged. And there's just no way that he planned that to shoot. It just didn't match up. And then Schellenberger just makes hay of it for saying, "Oh, Sanctuary City, they shouldn't have done it. If it hadn't been a sanctuary city, you wouldn't have been there." But the point with sanctuary cities is that people who are illegal, they will call the cops. on something that's not related to immigration. And it actually makes places safer. Although
Yeah.
there are times when it doesn't work. And that was one of them.
And they
I
could
was
get a
just really-
driver's license, and they could get insurance instead of being forced to drive a
tell
car
you-
when it's illegal because they don't want to.
in the wine industry, I used to do a lot of work with temporary and itinerant workers. And women, if they didn't show up for work, it was childcare issues. And men, if they didn't show up for work, it was because their car, license, registration, insurance issues. It was just so pervasive and just so common for that to happen. And it really is just
Well, you know what? Let me do one thing, Tim. Let me take us off the
domino.
air, and we could keep talking because okay, hang on.
I got to get going anyway.
Okay, but I want to say
Rant.
goodbye to everybody who's watching us.
I don't
Tune
even
in
know why
next
I'm
week.
here. I just wanted to correct you about the helium.
About the heat.
Oh, okay.
Um,
Well.
No, the